Welcome to another episode of Funny History, and Columbus Day just passed, and we want to dive deep into who really Columbus was in this episode. Now, when Columbus Day was invented back in the early 1900s, Italians in America were treated like trash. Italians were really treated poorly in America. And there were no spaghetti pride parades or Italian Lives Matters at that time. So what did the government do? They said, let's give the Italians a holiday for a guy who actually really was an Italian and never really stepped foot in America. Kind of like giving the Irish a holiday and calling it Shaquille O'Neal Day. In this episode, we're going to have a little bit of laughs and find out who Columbus really was. People have been arguing forever. Was Columbus a hero, or was he just a fabric of the government's imagination, or the worst roommate ever? It's going to be for you to decide. In the early 1900s, when Columbus Day was invented, Italians were treated very poorly in America. And the government, instead of giving them civil rights or treating them better, they decided, we'll give you Columbus Day. Oh, he's Italian. But he actually really wasn't. Columbus was born in Genoa. Now, Genoa at that time was not really part of Italy. It's basically like your wife bitching at you about doing chores and you buying her a knockoff Louis Vuitton and being like, shut up, babe, here you go. Here's a nice Louis Vuitton. It's Italian. Kinda. The government built Italian pride around a guy who wasn't even Italian, didn't sail a voyage for Italy. And here's the kicker. The first Columbus Day celebration wasn't even for Italians. In 1792, the Tammany Society, the same guys who ran Tammany Hall, threw a 300th anniversary celebration for Columbus's landing. It wasn't about immigrants. It was about flexing American pride after the Revolutionary War. Italians weren't even at the party. It was just powdered wigs, bad speeches, and worse wine. But the real turning point for Columbus Day came in 1891 in New Orleans. 11 Italian immigrants were lynched in New Orleans for supposedly being accused of killing the police chief. 11. The largest mass lynching in American history were Italians. Not another race, Italians. At that time, Italians were at the lowest level of the racial ladder in America. Back then, Italians weren't even considered to be white. It got so bad that Italy threatened America with breaking off relations with them. And what did America do? They didn't give Italians more rights or protect them. No, they gave them a holiday. Because why give people more rights when you could just give them a holiday, right? Because FDR, when he was president, made Columbus Day a national holiday. And he didn't make Columbus Day a national holiday to help give Italians more rights or to help them along. No, he did it for votes. He literally went out pushing Columbus Day to get more votes from Italians. The U.S. government do. They go, you know what, Italians? We're sorry for all the mistreating you. We're going to give you a holiday. I mean, that's like giving France a French fry day and handing out packets of ketchup. But if you think that what I just told you was crazy, it doesn't end there. There's so much more when it comes to Columbus. When Columbus Day was incepted as a national holiday, it was pure politics only. And you were going to have to be the judge if Columbus was really a hero and found America, or was he just government propaganda to gain votes and shut up Italians? All I know is that if Columbus was alive today, he'd be out there pitching his NFT, the Santa Maria Yacht Club, to everyone, trying to make money and scam people. When you read Columbus's first-hand written books, Columbus literally talked about the natives that he encountered as stupid, easily manipulated, easily going to be slaves, and how he could take advantage of them. Columbus was not this folk hero that people want to believe he was. Now, Columbus back in 1492 was kind of a failed businessman. He went around pitching his idea for spice trade to the Indies, to everyone. He went to Portugal, they said no. Went to England, they said no. Went to Italy, they said no. Finally, Spain said yes. It was almost like he was pitching on Shark Tank.
For 3 ships, I'll bring you Asia.
I guess they could have called it Spice Tank 1492. All it's going to take is 3 ships and a rat-infested, flea-infested voyage, and we're going to bring you all the spice that you could get. He was basically like a medieval startup founder with no product. Spain actually rejected him multiple times before they finally said yes. I guess they figured, what are we going to do? We'll just lose 3 ships. Who cares? Get this guy out of here. He won't leave us alone. And Columbus got rejected more times than Steve Jobs before Apple brought them back. He got rejected more times than I have by women and trying to reach the top cabinet. Spain finally said yes because they needed a PR win at that time because they kicked out the Moors and they were trying to make things all nice and nice around 1492 and thought, if this guy can really deliver what he's saying, this is going to be a huge government PR win for us. Columbus wasn't the best sailor in the world, and he wasn't also the best planner in the world. He brought with him a Hebrew-speaking interpreter, Luis de Torres. Probably butchering that name, but whatever. He brought him because he thought he was going to run into Hebrew-speaking people in the Indies. There's been a lot of conspiracy surrounding why would he bring a Hebrew-speaking gentleman, an interpreter, on his trip. Like I said, Columbus wasn't the best planner. You know, I mean, that's like bringing a carpenter to fix your plumbing. I mean, imagine when they finally landed, and he's like, hey, Louie, what are they saying? And he's like, yo, bro, I don't speak Mayan, I only speak Hebrew, but I think they said you missed Asia by like a whole continent. Columbus, for all the praise and statues and holidays that he gets, he actually underestimated the size of the earth by thousands of miles, and that's why he ended up in the Bahamas. This was more like a voyage from hell than a carnival cruise, trust me. These guys were stuck out to sea way longer than they ever expected. They were practically starving. It was rat-infested, flea-infested, disease-infested. These guys probably, by the time they saw land, thought to themselves, why did I come on this trip? I should have stayed in Spain and I probably would have kept half of my teeth here. And there's nothing like looking at your next meal and he's looking back at you because the crew was forced to literally eat the rats because they had no food. This wasn't a voyage of discovery. This was a floating nightmare. And imagine being on that boat and sizing up your next meal and realizing it's rat a la mode. But in October 1492, Columbus finally spotted land. Not America, not Asia, but the Bahamas. I mean, it's literally like trying to use your Waze app and not getting a good internet connection, or putting in avoid highways and driving around for 3 hours when it was only a 15-minute trip. Columbus gets a lot of praise these days, but actually in 1492, when he stepped off the boat, he did a little more horrible things than you may know. He didn't just discover new land. No, he actually enslaved the people, forced them to mine for gold that was barely even there, cut their hands off if they didn't produce enough, and technically kinda sorta started the whole slave trade in the Americas at that time because it wasn't a thing. And as a matter of fact, for someone who discovered America, there were millions of people living in the Americas and the islands when Columbus just ran into the Bahamas accidentally. Columbus wasn't so much chart maps. He was running rackets. He was more like the Tony Soprano of 1492 than this folk hero that everyone talks about. Historians estimate that more than half of the population of people that when he landed to when they were done, all their discovery and voyages in Spain and all that stuff were reduced to less than half of what it was when he first landed. Now, we all know that governments and people in power would never bend the truth for their benefit. But let's talk about something we've all learned in school. The names of the boats. The Pinta, the Santa Maria, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. They weren't even the real names. No, that wasn't the names of the boats. The government actually dumbed down the names of the boats because they thought young Italian kids were too stupid to remember the real names of the boats. So they shortened the names a little bit so they were easier to remember. I mean, it literally was like a 15th century marketing stunt. And they sound more like a 2000s boy band than a bunch of boats for a voyage. Coming to the stage, let's give a warm welcome for Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Now, Columbus wasn't just a one voyage kind of guy. And by his fourth voyage in 1503, he got stranded in Jamaica. His men were starving, they had no food, and he really had no way out. And the natives refused to help him. He had already got a bad name around town. The natives absolutely refused to help Columbus. So what did Columbus do? Columbus pulled out an almanac. He knew that an eclipse was going to happen the next night. So he tells the natives, you don't bring me food, you don't help me, I'm going to make that moon over there disappear, okay? The natives tell him, screw off. Well, that night, an eclipse happens, and the next day, this guy's being fed like he's at a Four Seasons. They come running over.
So, is this gluten-free?
I never realized that in 1503, Columbus was playing Jedi mind tricks with the natives. So basically, Columbus was, part scammer, part bullshitter, part voyager, part weather rapper. But what you may not know about Columbus is that Columbus was actually arrested by his own crown. That's right, they threw Columbus in jail. That's right, Spain locked him up, drug him back to Spain, and threw him in jail. This guy literally went from the admiral of the sea to an inmate. It's kind of like Michael Vick, when you're at the top of your game and then the next thing you know, you're getting thrown in shackles and in jail. Columbus couldn't even get it together in death. His bones had been dug up and moved from the Caribbean to Spain more times than a UPS package. Columbus was kind of like the Tupac of the 1500s. He died in 1506, and they dug up his bones multiple times because people believed that he was never dead. They moved his bones from Spain to the Caribbean to the Bahamas and back to Spain. There's been a lot of controversy and conspiracy theories around Columbus pretty much ever since he set his voyage and ever since his death. One of the big ones is that Columbus actually had access to secret Templar maps because his father-in-law was supposedly in the Knights Templar. Now, if Columbus had these maps, and the Knights Templar actually had come to North America, mapped it all out, and somehow, someway, Columbus was given these maps, how the hell did he end up in the Bahamas instead of Americas or even Asia that he was initially trying to get to? A lot of people believe this Templar theory because above his grave in Spain, there is a Templar cross. And when you backtrack a lot of the lineage and his wife and his father-in-law, some may say he might have been parts of the Knights Templar. It's a fun story, but there's not enough evidence to support it and back it up. So let's recap about Columbus. Columbus was a wool weaver's son who turned to the sea and ended up coming up with some cock and ball story to scam Spain into giving him a bunch of ships and a quick spice route that he ended up in the Bahamas. It's kind of like a failed businessman, a really crappy admiral and map maker. He totally missed Asia by an entire continent, enslaved people, conned them with an eclipse, brought the wrong translator, and that's another reason why a lot of people think the Knights Templar thing is connected. Arrested by his own crown, and even in his death, he couldn't get himself a permanent address. And this is a guy who's got his own holiday, statues, streets named after him, towns and cities named after him. And he never even stepped foot in America. He did discover one big thing, and the first rule of history, that if you tell a big enough lie, they'll end up putting you in a textbook. So you decide, is Columbus really the folk hero who discovered America, or was he just a marketing scam ploy of the government to shut up Italians, and now, years and years later, we still have the wrong history that's being taught to our children? Now that's Funny History with your host, Paul Delangelo. Please follow, like, share